I'm Gavin Coleman. I'm 54 years old. I'm married, two kids, 12 and 11 years old. We have a pet dog called Scout. He's a 9-month-old Groodle, who's we got him just before the first lockdown. So he's kept us pretty sane and certainly given us a lot of entertainment during this whole lockdown thing. So yeah, we live in Mentone here in Melbourne, and we love the suburb. We moved back from the States about a year and a half ago, and this suburb is fantastic. We live in a little cul-de-sac, so it's shut off. There's no through traffic, and there's on any given day there's about between 9 and 12 kids, all around the same age, playing basketball at the front of our house, and the sound of the kids is fantastic. So yeah, loving Melbourne. It's really just getting used to the cold weather because coming from Southern California, where it's basically at the edge of the desert, it's quite warm. Prior to that, we're on the Gold Coast, so it was warm up there as well. But down here, we certainly know about the cold weather and investing in some nice jackets.
Perfect start, mate. And that actually sort of leads to the next question about where did you grow up? And for someone like yourself, not only where did you grow up, but then, where did you live after that? Because you have lived in a couple of different spots.
I grew up northwest New South Wales in a little town called Walgett. Yes, and it's quite made famous from Hey Dad, from where Betty grew up or was from. And we had a little sheep and wheat farm out there, a few thousand acres. And I was offered the farm at about 25 years old, and this is the last thing I wanted to do was be stuck on a sheep farm. So decided to move to the Gold Coast and get into film work, acting and stunt work. Auditioned for a few TV commercials and things like that, and then a job came up at Movie World there on the Gold Coast, and I started there as an attraction presenter that went from attraction presenter through to got into the live stunt show, and that's where my life just took a hard right turn and just took me on a crazy journey that's literally taken me all over the world working, which is fantastic. But the Gold Coast was home for actually right up until when we leave. We left in 2015 to move to Southern California, to the United States, where I was working. I was very, very lucky in the States. I made some really good connections early through exotics racing at Fontana Raceway. The chief instructor there had mentioned that Porsche were hiring, and they were building a 53 acre, $60 million facility in Los Angeles. And I absolutely had to throw the resume into those guys, which I did. Got a job with them. That led to traveling all over the US, not for Porsche, but the connections that I made in Porsche. I befriended people that were working with the Audi Sport Tour, which was all the East Coast, and we did some fantastic circuits over there. We did Cadillac. Cadillac was probably the most work as far as tours go, and it did all of the US. So we did Florida, we did Daytona, an iconic circuit to not only just have a drive on, but to coach on. And we were doing upwards of 150, 155 miles an hour in these cars with a helmet and a harness device, no roll cage, and no harnesses. So it was quite an experience. Whilst I was doing that, I met another guy, which was just crazy. One thing just led to another over there. All these doors just popped open, and I think the accent got me into a lot of places too. And I can tell a bit of a yarn, so they seem to like that in America. So I ended up getting offered to come and work with a private contractor company, similar to Blackwater, if some of you may have heard of that. But and basically what they do is they do military training for companies like, the Pentagon, the State Department, and the most notable I felt was the Navy SEALs. So I got to train with those guys, and it was all tactical driver training. We didn't do much weapon training at all in the cars. There was some done, but the majority of it was all high performance. And we did everything from on sealed circuits to high speed tactical, through to rally. So full rally, rear wheel drive and front wheel drive. Setting the cars up into corners, that sort of thing. And it was flat out, absolutely crazy. We did a thing called right front seat, which was pretty amazing, where you'd basically the driver down, driver would be shot, passenger comes in, takes over the car, which just sounds insane when you're doing 100 miles an hour on this circuit. And literally, as a coach or a driver, you would find an area where you could do this, and you would say driver down, and you'd kick the wheel, and you'd literally drive straight off the side of the circuit out into the boonies. That Navy SEAL would have to come over and take over the operation of that car and secure you and take over, and then get back to the circuit and still do 2.5 more laps. So things like that was just the experience in the States was absolutely phenomenal. I was very, very lucky. There were some other programs I got involved with as well over there, which was just exciting. And then 2018, end of 2018, I came back, or we all came back. My wife had some great opportunities here in Melbourne, and we decided to settle in Melbourne, which was again, it's for what I do, it's probably I think is the best place in the entire country to do driver coaching, especially high performance stuff with Mercedes and obviously Dean with Evolve. It's and I did some track days with companies over there, and I've got to be honest, in the States, and they love their motorsport. They are just so fanatical about it. Just have to go to Daytona or one of those big NASCAR programs, and you'll see what I mean, or even Circuit of the Americas for the Formula One. It's insane. Coming here and working for the likes of like Dean, and meeting Dean and working with his team, and having that the philosophy of evolving the driver, it just suited me perfectly. I'm very, very passionate about how I work with my customer, if you like. Certainly, I'm lucky to bring some things to the table that maybe some other instructors don't have. For example, just one thing. I was part of an 8-year study on the biomechanics of driving. Griffith University did this study up in Queensland. The study was done out at the Performance Driving Centre. Holden was the main sponsor then at that stage. And I was lucky enough to be just one of the instructors that got involved in that. And I was just a guinea pig. I wasn't actually doing the study, but I was involved. So I had little sensors all over me, and I remember a lot of the data that came out of that. For example, your parallax error with your vision and all that sort of stuff. I learned so much with it that I now can pass that on to my customer, and it's just that little bit different to what most people teach, if you like. So sorry, that was a long answer.
It's all right. We like the long answer.
Out back Australia to the States and back again.
You've answered a couple of questions in one, which is handy for me. I don't have to go through and ask them again, so that's good. Easy done. Growing up out in the country where you did, obviously your ability or opportunity to drive would have come pretty early out in the paddocks, I assume. So let us know a little bit about when you first got behind a wheel, and what was your first car that you actually had, and who taught you on your L plates?
So, again, growing up in the bush, and speak to anyone that's done it, they've all been early drivers. I learnt to drive. My earliest memory was sitting on my dad's lap on an old Fordson Major tractor, and learning how to skid steer that tractor in mud, which was, I just thought it was the most awesome thing. You could literally spin that thing on a dime and on its own axis pretty much. And from that, I think from there, obviously all the old farm cars, we had Holden Utes and four-wheel drives and stuff like that. So I was lucky enough to get to drive a lot of older cars, with the old 3 on the tree and, manual gearboxes. I don't think I'd ever seen an automatic gearbox until I was in high school, believe it or not. And I think the fact that driving, having all that open area to just jump in a car and just, drive down to the front gate, which was about 2 Ks, and then back up to our wool shed and that sort of thing was a bonus for me, just to experiment and maybe feel a little bit of the dynamics of the car. Of course, when Dad would find all the donut marks on the clay pan, which wasn't far from, again, our shearing shed, I remember he would just go off his dial. What are you doing in that car? He'd never see me do it, but he always saw the aftermath on the ground. But it did teach me, again, things like oversteer, the bare basics of how to do a donut, a controlled donut, not just having the car whipping around, but I remembered, I can still remember, steering that car and keeping a nice wide donut around, doing like figure eights and barrels and that sort of stuff. That in high school for me, I started to do some of the local motor carners and things like that. So it lent itself for me to, I guess, enjoy that kind of motorsport. The local speedway was all we really had. It was just a little country town speedway. It was on a friend's farm, and they had the track graded. They had the graders in. They also had a motocross track there, so I got to do a bit of motocross as well. I was just there to have fun. I really wasn't concerned. I was laughing so much in the cars. I know it sounds hard to believe. I remember racing friends of mine and just bumping into them and just banging on the back of the car all the time and just laughing so much I couldn't breathe. But just understanding, I think the speedway, which was a kind of a natural thing for me to get involved with, was fun because as far as getting car control, I mean, a lot of the young blokes now have drifting and all that sort of stuff. But back when I was growing up in the early 80s and getting in cars and doing speedway, you had to learn pretty fast. If someone tapped you at the back and the back of the car went out, what do you do? Look, steer, keep that thing back on the circuit, and ideally stay in front of the guy that hit you. But it taught me a lot. And I think as I grew and even when I got into the stunt driving stuff, it allowed me to understand. For example, the donuts I talked about. I remember going around these barrels and I thought, well, my objective here is I don't want to hit the barrel. I just want to go around and I just want to, like I'm going around a person. That actually happened. I was asked to do that in a live stunt show called Police Academy up on the Gold Coast at Movie World. And I literally had to go around a guy's feet every day. So when I auditioned for that show, everything that I'd learned out on the farm basically lent itself for me to get into that world. And I remember the stunt coordinator, Vic Wilson, when I auditioned, he watched it and goes, I've never seen anyone come and I normally have to teach people that. That's something I teach you. You don't come and do that. And I was pretty chuffed that, he gave me that. He acknowledged that I actually had some kind of talent. So, yeah.
Nice one, mate. That's good. And again, it segues a little bit to our next question about racing. And you probably don't have the same level of racing experience as some of our team, but you've certainly still got a little bit of it. You've mentioned a few there, the local Motorcana and the Speedway and sort of stuff like that. So just a quick, when did you start that, and a quick overview, what sort of stuff have you raced?
So I was, the Walgett Speedway was pretty much, I was their main guy as far as doing all their MC work, and then friends of mine would always have cars, and I was lucky enough to be to be invited, if you like, to go and race within amongst those guys within their cars. If they didn't want to do every event, I'd end up getting in and doing some of the events as well. I started at the Speedway in motocross, and again, from the farm, always had motorbikes. So again, it was one of those natural things for me, is to just race the buddies, race all your mates around the farm, and all of a sudden the speedway was on, and of course you go out and you're racing the same guys around a purpose-built circuit, way better than the farm. So again, I was never like certainly wouldn't say I'd be a champion. I may have won a few events, but I wasn't. I was just out there having fun. I really loved the motor car side of things. All the wheel standing competitions I used to win. Again, having a farm, always had dirt bikes, so it was an easy transition. The speedway stuff, I think it gave me a taste of what else was out there. And again, growing up in a country town, there wasn't a lot of opportunities. You know, Bathurst was 6.5 hours drive. You know, so, and it was probably the most well-known car race that I had ever seen on television. So for me, I think the pinnacle was always to at least go and drive on the Bathurst circuit, let alone to go and coach on that track. Yeah, the speedway stuff was it's just very, very low budget. An old HQ Monaro that was just bashed around and handed from one bloke to the next. I think when I got it had dropped a valve, and I just started that thing up, and it just keep going. I just couldn't kill it. So that's pretty much where I sort of kicked off with it all.
That's pretty cool. And linked to that is the other stuff you've done, and linked, I suppose, too, with the driver training, is the stunt driving that you've done as well. So a little bit different to most of the other crew on the team. I don't think that any of them have actually had a career in stunt driving. So go through and explain some of that sort of stuff, because you've been involved in some amazing things there, including some stunt work in some amazing films as well. So people have probably seen your stuff on screen.
Yeah. Again, I think with the film work, I was very, very lucky, and I'm very, very thankful for the opportunities I had when I first got into the film industry. And I started out, again, if some of your viewers would remember the Police Academy stunt show at Movie World. That show went for 16 years, and I was in that show for 15 of those 16 years. So I got into the show in year 2, the second year of operation. And I was lucky because I was a bit versatile. So I got to do the motorbike rolls, which was Kirby. You do a wheel stand and you do an endo, and then that you do high falls, and there was a golf buggy that did wheel stands and that sort of thing. I was also, because I could handle a car well, I got to jump not only in the police car, in the police cruisers, I got to drive the 28 T-bucket hot rod that they had there, which was a great, fun little stunt car, short wheelbase, 350 Chevy, turbo 400 gearbox. So we just slap into reverse when we want to go forward to reverse, fast. And I think once I was there, probably training under the stunt coordinator, again, Vic Wilson, for maybe a year. And he just said, mate, I think you've got something there that needs to be, fleshed out, if you like. And I think I want to introduce you to some people. So he actually became my manager for a little while, way back, before I got an agent. And he introduced me to a guy called Chris Anderson. Chris Anderson has done more films than you probably have had hot dinners. And he now lives down here in Melbourne, funny enough. But I worked under Chris with New Generation Stunts on the Gold Coast as a stuntman, not necessarily a stunt driver, but I did everything. So I did full burns, like you set yourself on fire with a team, of course, high falls. I did a bit of water stuff, car knockdowns, all the fun stuff, and fight sequences, and all the basic bread and butter stuff that you think stuntmen need to have up their sleeve, if you like. And you would get called on that kind of thing on some TV shows. When I got in the industry, there was a few American TV productions being shot in Australia, in Queensland. One called The Beastmaster, another one called The Lost World. And funnily enough, those two TV series, I was getting work on those every week, as well as working in the theme park. So I was was practicing my craft, if you like. I was in the cars every day, practicing precision. So everything, stopping on a mark, trying to make the car do maneuvers that, without pulling on a handbrake or hitting an e-brake. So I was trying to use revs to make it do different things that everyone else had to use e-brakes. So I was trying to find a different niche, if you like, for myself, because everyone said, all the older stunt guys were saying to us, including Chris Anderson and Vic Wilson, stunt coordinators that I've currently been working for, had said, it's great that you do, that you can do all this stuff, but really you're just like everyone else. You've got to have a specialty. So find something you're good at and then work on that. And that was when I went, okay, well, I think I've got something for vehicles. I'm going to follow that up. And that just went to a whole other world. I was hiring cars. Oh my goodness. Avis on the Gold Coast, we would take cars back and the thing would become because we'd flat spotted all the tyres up at the airport in Brisbane. The stupid stuff you do. And then I ended up buying older cars, of course, and doing, trying to find maneuvers that were like a signature thing that people would go, oh, that's, Gav Coleman could do that really easy if we needed that done on set, like, full high speed on the limiter in reverse around a track, around a racetrack. I would just find, areas, the Performance Driving Centre, because I was instructing there at one point. I was lucky enough to be able to go out and practice on that circuit, flat out backwards. I know it sounds odd, but there's TV commercials you may have seen where guys are going flat out backwards, and it's not something that everyone can do. But I found ways that would help me stand out, if you like. Again, after working for a few years with those coordinators on those series, and then getting known as a driver, I was lucky enough to work on shows like Daybreakers. So Daybreakers, I got to double Ethan Hawke, American actor. Great guy, very, very intelligent guy. I remember sitting in makeup, next to him, having a conversation. If it ever got political or it got, even the science of even film work, like I just remember going, oh my God, this guy's just mind blowing. He's just such an intelligent man. William Hurt, I got to double William Hurt down here at Fox Studios here in Melbourne. Not Fox Studios, Dockland Studios, sorry, Fox's Sydney. So I got to work down there. William Hurt, wow, that was, again, an amazing opportunity to double him. And I thought this guy really didn't like me. He hardly spoke to me in makeup because they'd have to do our makeup together. They'd made our hair look the same. And he hardly spoke a word. And whenever we'd finished stunts, any of the stunt work, he come up, he just tapped me on the shoulder and give me a nod and then just walk away. And I go, okay, not a lot of feedback here with this guy. But anyway, on the very last day of shoot, when they basically call that's a wrap, he was so in character that he playing the role of a hitman that when they called, that's a wrap, he just snapped out of it, and it was all of a sudden he's super chatty, and it was crazy. It was just again the nicest guy, and so we chatted for ages and got a photograph, and yeah, great guy. And then I think the only other bigger name that you guys might know was Robert Patrick, who was the Terminator 2 actor, who was the liquid cop that, ran down the street like this. So I worked with him on a show with John Cena, who's obviously WWE performer, called The Marine. And John Cena was the Marine. He's come back from duty and, his wife gets kidnapped, and I'm doubling the lead bad guy. And that was a lot of fun because we had a 2-ton Lincoln Navigator. We're jumping this thing and we're flat out through the bush. And again, great opportunities to work with some really good stunt coordinators. The second unit director on that was Conrad Parmisano, who's done some massive movies in America, and very, very hard taskmaster, but really interesting guy. Great fun to work with. And again, a lot of the other stuff I think here in Australia was, you know, Medivac and a TV show called Fire that was filmed in Brisbane. And there were not a lot of driving stuff, a little bit, but not a lot. There was more like for high falls and, you know, getting shot. And you're often, when you're as a stuntman, you're playing the bad guy. So you're often getting killed. So, and I think on on Lost World, I was getting killed once a week. But you've obviously got different makeup on and you're playing a different character pretty much. So, and I did get to double a lot of the actors. So, yeah, so very, very lucky, very fortunate. The film industry's been, you know, wonderful to me over the years. And I'm back here in Melbourne. I've been working on a Netflix film down here that lockdown has put a lid on it. I'm not sure. I think I can say what it is. It's got a movie called Clickbait, and I'm doing driving stuff on that, stunt driving. So we did a crash just before the first lockdown. We did a crash. There was a young lady from Sydney, another stunt driver from Sydney. They brought down for that gig, and basically I had to just smash her off the road. And again, playing the bad guys, I get away. So, yeah,
It's pretty cool. What about your two-wheel stuff? Quite famous for your two-wheel stuff, aren't you?
Yeah, I forgot to talk about that. So yeah, the two-wheeling. So, sorry, I did forget to say this. There was when Police Academy ended up at Movie World, I was very, very fortunate to be in a position to pitch a new show. I heard that Police Academy was shutting down. And when I spoke to the creative director at Warner Brothers, just on passing, he goes, I said, what's the new show? He goes, we don't have anything yet. And I went, oh, well, I've got an idea. Can I pitch it? And he goes, well, be in my office tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock and you can do what you like. No, I'm happy to hear it. I had like 3 pages of scribble. It was hardly anything. So I went home. I worked that night and I contacted all the people I knew at Holden and got cars. I got Paul Morris allowed me to bring a couple of cars down from the driving centre. Anyway, long story short, pitched it the next day. He goes, the creative director says, the board of directors are all upstairs in a board meeting. Would you come and pitch to them? And I absolutely crapped myself because I knew John Menzies. I was always a bit nervous of him, and he was the chairman of the board at Warner Brothers there. And I was so nervous around him, but I went, okay, let's do it. And he goes, go and have a coffee, of which I had about 4. So I was like this when I went into the room. I was just so nervous. Pitched the show, and he stood up on the other side of the table and said, right, well, I love it. That's what we're going to have, Michael. Get him on the books and set him up with a contract, and that's this new show. And I'm sitting there in absolute shock going, that can't be that. That can't have just happened like that. Sure enough, the next 12 months was insane. So we auditioned, and John actually said to me, do you think you can find 10 drivers that can do all the stuff you're saying you want in this show? And my answer was, I believe I can find those drivers. If I have the ability to advertise Australia and New Zealand, I think if we cast a massive net and audition as many people as we can, we'll find some real anomalies out there. And it wasn't about finding someone that could be a race car driver, because we know race car drivers can take a car to its absolute limit, but still have mechanical sympathy there to a degree and look after the tires and look after the fuel. And so there's certainly an element we need to do a long-term stunt show. We need that kind of person, but we also need someone that can hold a car sideways in a full drift close to another car and have that precision, sort of, if you like, as far as holding that there. Because again, drifting, there's an art to that as well. And I know, a lot of race drivers can hang a car in a corner and hold a good slide, but drifting really is another kettle of fish. And having the ability to drift but not flog the car, there's an art. If you see where I'm going with this, there's a bit of an art form there. But then there's a stunt driver. Now, the stunt driver has that precision stopping and can drive a car on two wheels and all that sort of thing. So there was another skill that I was hoping we could bring to the table for this particular driver, or 10 particular drivers that will have an element of all of that. And one of the guys we ended up with was Warren Luff. And Luffy, from the moment he started driving, I'm going, oh my God, this guy's a freak. Like he can do it all. And we auditioned two-wheeling on the day, and there were guys actually two-wheeling the car, 10, 15 metres, and then it'd go on the training wheel or it'd come back down. But you could straight away tell if someone had that ability, that innate feel of the car. When it goes to kick that way, I'm going to bring the nose under. If it goes to come back down, So we're looking for someone like that. And then we ended up going through hundreds and hundreds of auditions, and we whittled it down to, I think, 12 drivers. And we trained for the next 6 months, constantly trained. So we had a VN Commodore with a half cage in it with a training wheel on the side, so that if the car went too far, and I'm saying when it goes too far, the car's literally on its absolute side. So, you might be two-wheeling about there, but when it goes too far, it's right up vertical like this. So we wanted to find, to two-wheel a car, you basically got to go too far to be far enough and then catch it. And then once it's on the sidewall, it's so smooth and it's actually quite easy, but it's just having the confidence to go that little bit too far because you think, oh God, I'm going over on the roof and I'm going to squish my, pile drive my head into this car. But once people get it, it's like, I can only liken it to flying, I guess. You kind of feel, or wheel standing a motorbike maybe. There's a real zone that you can get into, and you can literally turn, if your wheels are on this side, you can lower the tyres down a little bit to turn to the right, and to go left, you literally have to go right up so that the mirror is actually almost driving into the ground to turn left, if that makes sense. So there's and I've been lucky. I was working on an MTV show called The Challenge just before Christmas in Prague, and I was invited over there to go and do that show. So, and I had a guy actually there was 6 different people climbing out of the rear window of a E36 BMW. So they were climbing up on top of the car, which was, pretty good fun. So I love two-wheeling cars. And I do, and I've spoken to Dean a little bit about a project I still want to get off the ground down the road, and hopefully he'll be involved in that at some point. Or won't let that cat out of the bag just yet. Yeah, the two-wheeling, I think is again, it's another feather in the cap. And there's quite a few guys in Australia that can do some two-wheeling now. I'm just very fortunate that I can two-wheel left-hand drive and right-hand drive. So maybe that's just there's that little bit of an edge there. And I think that's what got me the job in Prague before Christmas, was the fact that I could two-wheel. I could just jump in a left-hand drive car and get it up on 2 wheels. So, yeah.
How far have you gone on 2 wheels?
Distance-wise, about 2 kilometres in length, and then I blew a tyre out. So, it comes down to fuel. There was a VN Commodore that another friend of mine made up on the Gold Coast, and he said, "I'll come out and have a play." So I went out, and we could only get like 250 metres in that car, and it would run out of fuel. So, but then I've had other cars where you're kind of limited to the sidewall on the tyre. And I remember going to, where was it? I was trying to think of there was an area up in Queensland where we would go up and we did some tyre tests. And I tried, you'd think a rally tyre would be, that'll be, so strong and thick. And it would just disintegrate. So it would actually start delaminating, in, maybe even 400 or 500 metres. We found it was starting to get too hot and starting to come to pieces. Light truck tyres were pretty good because they've got a fairly thick sidewall. The only tyre that I haven't done is a run flat. And I spoke to the the Australian marketing manager a few years ago for Bridgestone, and I was looking at doing an event, and I talked to him about using run flats or doing some R&D with run flats. And he goes, that would be the main tyre I would point in your direction if you were going to do a big, where you need to stay on two wheels for a long, long period of time, because the sidewall is so thick. It's basically like driving on a normal tyre when it's down on all fours. So, yeah, that's so. Yeah, I haven't gone that far. Over in Prague, we were doing they wanted us to do a couple of kilometres on two wheels and go at an airport and just go around along the main runway and then down along the taxiway and back around again. But they didn't like the shot behind. I think was one angle was good, but the other they didn't really like it. So they just said, no, we're just going to do one direction and 600 metres. So it's just over half a K. And we would do 2 runs and change the tyres. And that was on concrete. So it's really quite hard on the tyre, yeah.
Were they using run flats?
No, they were just running normal. So the guy that built the car, we said, can you go and get us some new tyres? Just normal car tyres. We were going to get run flats, but he had so many tyres because he's a rally driver and he runs a rally school. But he goes, I just use these tyres. They seem pretty tough, like robust. And they were just off old BMWs and that sort of thing. So they were just normal road going tyres. But we would do 2 runs and then you could see the canvas coming through. And then we didn't want to take the risk on blowing a tyre and possibly tipping it over. So he just said, no, we'll just do 2 runs. And that's just a bit over a K, or 1.4 Ks, and so 1.2 Ks. And we'll just change them. So he had his truck and his crew there. So within a couple of minutes, whilst they were rigging the new person in, he's changing the tyres on the car. So so the new person that had to climb out of the car had a harness on, and they had a little line to them, like a safety line, so that they didn't fall out onto the ground. Because we're still doing, I think when I was going along on that show, we were actually travelling along at about 26, 27 kilometres an hour. So they thought if he fell off or she fell off, that was going to be a pretty big hit, because you're fairly high up off the ground when the car's on 2 wheels. And if they did happen to somehow make a stumble and fall off the side, they might go head first. So they made sure they were safe. Mm.
And you did touch on it a little bit earlier, but how did you actually get into the driver training side of things? So how did you do, transition from all that sort of stunt driving and that sort of stuff, and then move in towards the actual driver coaching side of things? And was that up at Norwell, or was that again in America, or was that back?
It was, mate. Yeah. So again, the stunt driving thing opened that door for me. We used to do a precision stunt driving show on the Indy circuit when Indy ran that race on the Gold Coast before the V8s took it over, and we did a high speed thing. So they didn't want us stopping too long in one area. So they said, we need you to kind of, if you can, keep moving in one direction. And we had the 28T bucket hot rod and 2 police cruisers, 2 ex-LAPD cars, lights and sirens and everything. So we formulated a little bit of a chase sequence, and we ran it by them and said, that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. The guys will get out at certain points and jump on the car with me, and we'll do donuts and carry on. It was a lot of fun, but we had to put this thing together and practice forward 360s on the main straight in between 11 meters. So from concrete wall across to concrete wall was 11 meters at the start finish line. So we had to go and practice that, so that make sure that when I went into a forward 360 in the hot rod, I didn't back this thing or forward nose it into the concrete wall. So we ended up hiring the whole facility there at Norwell, the Performance Driving Centre, as it was known back then. And I think it's called the Norwell Motorplex now. But Paul Morris, and his team were fantastic. They let us use any of that circuit that we needed. We just blocked out an area where we figured would be similar to the Indy track. Marked it out with cones where we thought, measured where the walls were, and did that. And then we were there for a few days putting this thing together. And then at the end of it, the chief instructor came out. This was on the first session we did. That was that must have been 98 maybe. And chief instructor Pete came out and said, mate, look, you know, I love watching what you guys are doing out there. If you ever want a job, come and talk to me. And I went, mate, I would love to do what you guys do, you know, training people, because to get in this, it's just a little bit of a side note here. To get into the stunt industry, you have to do, so there's 5 elements for the grading. There's water, heights, body control, vehicles, and fire. And the vehicles, you've got to have some kind of training in all these areas. But vehicles, you have, if you just do a defensive driver training program, a level 2 or high performance driver training program, that's enough to get you, you know, by for vehicles, if that makes sense. And I said, oh, look, you know, I didn't come out here to get my grading, but I was actually looking at coming out to do that. And I would really love to come and work with you guys. So literally a week later, I got a phone call from Peter Bisley, who was the chief instructor, and said, mate, we've got an opportunity. If you come out, you can run through the level 2, and we'll put you through the 2-day course, and we'll start training you, which he did. And once again, it was just a whole other world of, oh my God, this is me. I found my calling here, because at the time I was training stunt performers to drive at Movie World. And I thought, what better way to learn, you know, right down to how you know, properly set yourself up in a car, and how to, you know, how to steer and hold the wheel, and what advantages are. We would always teach a under wheel shuffle, which was always taught for stunt driving, to, you know, 9 and 3, and all the steering technique, where to hold the wheel, how to turn the wheel. Why do we do that? And I blended a lot of that into how I teach stunt drivers. And so that I started doing that. We did a lot of high school kids, and you know, any corporate, you know, big businesses would come in, and I started training out there with them. Oh geez, it might be probably 10 years later, I set up my own business. So I was doing my own consultancy and driver training as well. And then I went into a business partnership with another guy, Mike Sweeney, up on the Gold Coast, up in Brisbane. And we were doing training in the mines. So we ended up getting work out at Chinchilla and Miles doing the accredited driver training. So we got into 4-wheel drive training, and we ran 2 different 4-wheel drive packages, if you like, as training packages, and it was all accredited, so nationally recognised. You could go from, you know, Miles or Chinchilla down to, or go over to Western Australia and go to BHP, and if they're using the ROVEH program, which was what we used to teach, then you could literally walk in and you're saving them money. You're saving them $400 or $500 to go and do this course. So yeah, and I was, again, lucky enough, I worked with RACQ, so I was a contractor to RACQ, teaching their programs as well, their accredited courses. And on road, I didn't teach learner drivers. It was something I never really wanted to do. They frightened me a little bit, only because I know you've got some controls in the car, but yeah, I watched a guy almost get taken out, or it was actually a lady almost get taken out by a loaded gravel truck at an intersection one day, and the whole experience frightened me so much. I thought, I think I just want to coach people that have already got the basics, and then we'll take them from there. So yeah, so I've been very lucky with the advanced and the defensive. And it's funny, you know, people say advanced driver training and defensive driver training, and it's a little fun. It's a funny little thing for me, because advanced, I think, yeah, oversteer, understeer, you're on a skid pan, you're teaching cornering lines, you're teaching maybe some high performance. I kind of like an advanced driver training to a lot of those elements. Whereas as far as defensive goes, I think, and this is just me, and I'm sure this is arguably something put their case forward for. But I think defensive is more, understanding situational awareness, following distances, queuing spaces at lights, that kind of thing. And there's elements of actually controlling the car in there, how they're sitting, what they're doing with their vision, are they checking mirrors, all that sort of thing. So I think for me, those two are actually separate things. I don't like to lob advanced driver training and defensive in the same pot, but that's just me. It's caused actually, especially at Porsche, when I worked for Porsche in the States, they took a little bit of an exception to not lobbing it all into the one pot. Well, not Porsche themselves, but some of the instructors there that did a lot of work outside Porsche go, oh no, that's what we call advanced. And it was kind of funny to hear how other countries look at those types of training. Yeah, quite interesting.
Yeah, I agree with you on the definitions and what's involved in defensive and advanced. Through your driver training experience, you've mentioned that with a lot of the stunt work and things, you've met quite some, famous actors and things. But what about through the driver training? Have you actually coached anyone next to you in the car who is a famous name?
Oh, wow. I've had a few famous people in the car. Well, I mean, not really coached. Like I was sat in with Peter Brock up at the driving centre one day. I don't even know how that happened. They said, go and jump in that car out there and do some runs over the turntable. So to Peter, and I'm in the car, and he says, come on, mate. He just jumps in. He says, let's go and do a couple. Show me what goes on over here, and I'll jump in and we'll do something. So we ended up going over this thing a bunch of times, and that was fun. I mean, I'd never met the guy. On passing, he'd always say hi, like he seemed like a nice bloke. But then we were in the car and we're just having a bit of a laugh, and that was kind of fun. When I was at Porsche, I worked for Ellen, the Ellen show. Yep. So Ellen came out and did actually did her show from Porsche one day, and her sidekick Andy. Sorry, the dog has just come up to me. Her sidekick Andy, who's the kind of the clown, he's one of her producers that sort of sits there, and she sends him into all these weird and wonderful scenarios. And basically they said, we've got this Australian stunt driver guy that we're going to get him to go out with you and teach us something. So the Porsche was, like I say, $60 million facility. It had everything. They had an ice hill, kick plate. You drive across it and throws the car sideways, and 1.35 mile circuit, and a circular, wetted down, icy kind of skid pan. But they said they want this guy to go over the kick plate, which basically throws the car into an oversteer slide as you drive over it, and it's set at random, so you don't know what direction it's going to go. So we went over, and I said, look where you want to go, and I pointed to where he had to look, which was just a little cone at the other end. And I said, just keep your eyes on that cone and aim the front tyres at the cone no matter what happens at the back of the car. So we drive across it, and this guy, I've never seen anyone freak out like this guy. He completely, utterly just freaked out in the car. And they've got vision. They played it on TV. And I don't know why, but I can't find the vision anymore. But I'd love to get it, because he just, I think from memory, I think he even let go of the wheel. And I thought, these people are driving with us on our roads. My God, if he gets into a little bit of trouble, he's just going to go like this and go, somebody else fix it. But other than that, not really. No, as far as famous people go, what's that?
So you were on the show, like as in the car they had?
Yeah. I was with him. I got a photo with Ellen and then it was the manager of the Porsche Experience Center and the North American. Was he the marketing manager for Porsche for North America? Like he built the facility. It was his baby, and he's a South African guy. He and I got on like a house on fire, and I don't think he's with them anymore. But we all got a photo together, and it was all very friendly. But that's off the top of my head, I can't really think of anyone else that was famous in the cars. Over the years at Movie World, we'd have a few people come in and get in the police cars with us. But they were generally like TV presenters and those sort of people. They weren't like household names.
What are some of the biggest driving fails that you've experienced?
There's two that come to mind. And I've been so lucky, and touch wood, I've been so lucky when it comes to that. Coaching, I'm very proud of the fact that I've not had anyone crash a car with me in it as a coach. Also, I haven't had someone throw up, or I know I haven't thrown up in the car as well. And I know, like I say, I worked with Porsche. They had a list on the board, and I'm not, not taking anything away from those guys, because there's some amazing coaches over there and race drivers, and they're all wonderful, wonderful guys. Like, they're like family. They're wonderful people. But they put a list up on the board and everyone's name, and they would put if your customer threw up, they'd put a little mark, and then another one, and then when you get to 5, they put a line through it. And I never got anyone to throw up, and I was so proud of it. I'm thinking, what are you doing in the car to make your guy throw up? But anyway, as far as having things go wrong, there's two that come to mind. But the first one was on a film set. Was on the Marine, and Chris Anderson said, "Mate, we are on such a tight schedule here. We need 2 takes max. So if we can do it in 1 take, really, really happy." The second unit directors are really hard taskmaster, and like, we just got to keep him happy. You're not allowed to damage the cars. So when we do the ram, we want you to he's going to work with you. You can just touch him, but we don't want big dents and that sort of thing, because we've got to use the cars a bit more. So there was a real challenge in that, But they said to us one day, there was a long back road up behind Dreamworld there. There was a row of those water-filled barriers, and there was one little gap, and they said, "We need you to ram the police car through that gap, and then you come back out and you go along the main road. He's going to go down through the table drain, and the roof gets ripped off because there's an excavator working." And great. So we go, and for some reason, I came in because I was shooting from behind, and they saw that as I turned in, he turned a bit early, and they say, "Cut, no, let's reset," because we could see a gap. It looked like he didn't hit him. Next one, similar kind of thing happened. I think the timing was out on the second one. I think maybe I came over too early. Anyway, on the third one, he said, "Mate, just ram him through there. Get him through that bloody gap, no matter what." So I did. So this time I thought, well, I'm going to tap him a bit harder. I told him, "You're going to feel me this time, but I'm not going to wreck the car, of course." And anyway, as I've kicked him in, there's one of the very last plastic barriers before the gap. He's kind of run up on it, and it's kicked over, and he's gone up over the top of it and completely tore out all the power steering, lines in the car, and there was oil and shit everywhere. And oh my God, I parked my car. The coordinator called me up, and I got absolutely screamed at in front of everybody. It was awful, but I lived to go on the day. We finished the whole movie, and I went on to do some more work with that guy, which was, thank God he didn't, wipe me. But I'm sure that would have cost that production quite a lot of money for that, because it was the only stunt car that they had, so they had to rebuild that car. It was 2 more days, and then we went back out and reshot it, and on the first take we got it. But the second one was Daytona, and like I said, Daytona, and I'm not sure if you've been to Daytona, but that circuit is kind of a little overwhelming anyway. You look up at this gigantic grandstand, and it's just famous. And I just remember seeing, watching races there on TV, and it was just a fantastic circuit. And I was there with Cadillac, and Cadillac ran a thing called V-Lab, VLab is their V performance program. And basically customers pay a couple of $1,000 to come, and they get 2 days of tuition on the circuit, and we would break the circuit up into segments. So the beginning of the first day, we would go out and teach them. So I was say just as you come down off the banking down into the infield. So segment 1 was that down through the end of the pit exit, and then you come around behind the pits, and then sort of into the infield, and then you turn around and you do that 3 or 4 times. So they get used to the cornering lines and so on, and then they do the next segment. And by the end of the first day, they're doing some fairly steady laps. Second day, we come back out and we're basically going flat out. Now it's called lead follow. So I had lead car, and I'd have all the instructors we'd have 3 cars behind us. And I remember going up from the infield up onto the banking and say, okay, so you've got a radio in this hand, steering wheel in this hand. And if you can imagine you're going up on the banking now, and as the car does this, the car behind you, you can see it in the mirror. So in your interior mirror, you're looking up going, okay, I've got that guy. And I can just see the top of the second car back, but the third car back, on the banking, you start to lose them. Does that make sense? You can see the 2 cars behind you, but if that third car starts to do a bit of lollygagging, or, what they call rubber banding, where he would lean back, by the time I'm out, because I'm telling them, accelerate, let's pick up the pace now, guys. We've come out of the infield. We're up on the banking. Let's really, experience the acceleration of these amazing cars. 640 horsepower CDSVs, full bore down and then we're on the back straight and we're accelerating. And I'm looking, I'm seeing the 3 cars come in, but it's hard to gauge the distance to that last car. Right. So then I'm saying, so when I need to brake, so we're looking for our brake marker on the brakes now, start squeezing, squat that suspension down. We're going to be very smooth on the turn in to the bus stop. Now, I'm sure you're familiar where the bus stop is there. So, of course, the first 2 cars have followed me in beautifully, and we've just kept a neutral throttle through there. We've got a good speed through there. But the last car, I didn't realise, and it was the only time this had happened, he pulled right back. And he just came in way too hot. And by the time he's turning in there, I'm now coming up onto the banking again. So I can see my 1, my 2, and I'm coming off the throttle because I'm going on. I've only got 2 cars. I can't see it. And I said, that last car, are you back there? The blue CDSV, are you back there? Nothing. Couldn't see him. And then as I'm coming around the banking, I look at my left through my left-hand side, and I could see him. He's gone straight through the bus stop, and because he's tried to turn back onto the circuit, he's now on the grass, just spinning, spinning around, and finally came to a stop. Thank God, because there's nothing over there. But he's then kind of crawled back up onto the circuit and started following us again, and then we ended up going back into the pits. And the chief instructor goes, Did you notice you had a car missing? And I went, look, not until I looked out my left-hand side and saw him spinning through the infield. And I said, mate, in the whole week that we were there, it was the one car that had gotten away on me. And but I tell you what, God, it felt awful. I just felt so bad. And that footage is actually on YouTube. The guy actually uploaded that footage to YouTube, and I found it and watched it. I went, oh my God, I don't think he's slowing down at all. He's just gone way too quick into this bus stop. But yeah, it was funny to watch from his car. In fact, that was a family, and I think it was the dad. So there was the dad, there was the wife, one son, and there was 2 sons, and one of the other boys had to go with another group. But the mum and the dad and one of the sons was behind me. And because you go up, you introduce yourself, you talk to them quickly, make sure the chip, their little cards in so it's filming, because in those cars they've got the built-in camera and everything so that they can film everything and all the data. And the mum was a real rev head. She just said, I just want to go fast. And what they did was, after that, it was either that or there was another car that that had gone off somewhere, and they brought the speed down to 130. So they said, like, we're not going to go over 130 miles an hour now. That we're limiting it to that because we've had a couple of cars go off. So yeah, I kind of felt a bit bad that I might have been, part of why they caused that. But yeah, it's one of those things. If you can't see where that car is at the back, and it's hard work. Like when I did it for Audi, again, because I did Audi after that, and I just made sure I didn't lose my three little ducks behind me.
Yeah. What other hobbies, activities, and skills do you have? You obviously spend a fair bit of time with the kids and things.
Look, my boys are right into basketball at the moment, and I kind of, as a dad, I think I I try to get as passionate about their sports as they do. And neither of the boys were into any sports. They were actually, funnily enough, when we were in America, all they wanted to do was make little movies. But since we've come back to Australia, I've got one young bloke that was playing tennis, so I'd take him anywhere to play tennis. And now they're both obsessed with basketball. So that's prior to the lockdown. I would just take them to training, and we have a coach that we take them to, and their passion is that. I love motorbikes. I haven't got a bike at the moment, but prior to leaving Australia, I had a WR450, and I used to. In fact, I threw a bunch of stuff out the other day on my bike gear because it's just old and tatty looking. But I just missed my enduro riding. So I used to, go up through the hills up behind Movie World there and up on the Gold Coast. And Queensland have a thing called an RTCB ride. I think it's a Reliability and Trials Club of Brisbane or something it's called. And they hire like farms, and they have these big circuits. And I would go every single time they'd have an event. I'd be out at those things, flat out around and trying to stay on top of the bike and not off, getting flung off it. But that's pretty much it as far as that goes. But I think down here in Melbourne, it's going to be basketball with the kids. Is pretty much all I'm up to at the moment. Love to get another bike, but I certainly don't want to ride a bike on roads here. After, in fact, a good friend of ours, their son's just had a pretty bad crash and broken his arm. He had a new motorbike in the garage the next morning. Can you believe that? Yeah, he was taken out by a car and smashed his arm to pieces, and his mates have already bought him another bike and put it in his garage. So, but yeah. We live close to the water, so down here at Mentone. So, I love swimming. I'd go swimming out there as much as I could if it wasn't so freaking freezing cold.
And what about books and movies? Have you got a favourite book or favourite movie, or even a genre of movie if you haven't got one particular movie?
Oh, wow. Of course, action. I love action movies. But my problem when I watch movies is I pick them to pieces. And now that when Jonah, who's 12 now, when he was about 8 and 9, all he wanted to do was make little short films. So I would always be talking to him about, how to set camera up and never to cross the line, and, how to kind of film action and edit and all that sort of thing. And I think that's my own to my own detriment. I watch movies now. I just pick them apart, and I watch a sequence, or I can't help but look in the background and go, oh, I saw that car, that old VW or Ford F-150 truck in 2 scenes already. Like, I keep seeing the same things. But I'd say, yeah, action movies. I haven't read any decent books for a while. It's just time, which is embarrassing, which I should. Even my wife said, you should find a good book and sit down and read it. It's funny because Jonah, who's my 12-year-old, he's into horror movies, and I certainly get a kick out of those. I think since the lockdown, this whole Netflix thing has been amazing, as far as, keeping us a little bit sane. And I love, things like Rust, Rust Valley, where they rebuild all these cars. They find this guy finds these old cars and just, drags them into his yard and rebuilds them. And I love those restoration shows. I met the Foose. I don't know if you know Chip Foose.
I
You've
just
seen
watched one
Chip
of his
Foose over
YouTube
the
videos
years.
before.
Oh, did you? So I trained his son at Porsche. So him and his son came in, and one of my best friends had Chip, and I got his son, and I coached him in the car, and then Chip came and jumped in the car, and we got a photo. But prior to that, his next door neighbour has a factory, and his next door neighbour is a good friend of mine's dad, and he collects cars. And he said, "Come and look at my car collection." So I went over to look at his. Oh my God, his cars! He's got an original like GT 500 up on a stand, up on a rack, just sitting there. Sort of things, worth a fortune, and Thunderbirds and all these great cars. And he goes, "Oh, you've heard of Chip Foose in Australia, haven't you?" And I go, "Yeah, of course I have. He's got a TV show." And he goes, "Yeah, that's his place next door." And I went, "You're kidding." He goes, "No, he's a good mate. Come on, we'll go and say good day." And I went, "What? Come on." So he just literally gets me by the shirt and says, "Come and say good day." So all these people are lined up at his gate. He does these tours through his workshop.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
This guy just walks up and just goes up to the gate that's got kind of a half dummy locked, pushes it open, closes it again. So come in, gets me in there. We walk straight out the back, and here's Chip on the phone. But we stand there for like a minute, and he gets off, and he says, "Oh, this is a good friend of mine, Gavin," and we shake hands. He says, "Oh, let me show you around the place, Gav." And he's showing me all these cars he's built, and like I'm his long lost buddy. It was crazy.
That's cool.
So yeah, that was pretty funky. So I love those shows. Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm up to at the moment.
Since the lockdown, I've been watching quite a few of those restoration type shows, and I love building cars. I love playing with cars. If I had the space and the resources to do it, I would have my own garage set up with all that. And it's such a fun thing. That's how I got into cars in the first place. I'm pulling them apart and put them back together and stuff. And so I've got a real passion there to do that again in the future when I can get myself some space and resources for it. I've got a little book for you that you would be. Hey, Big Teddy Scout. Here is a book. Now, it's good that you've got Scout there, because this is a good book.
Oh,
you should read.
So I've got a story about that.
Yeah, they turned it into a movie just recently, but I would suggest don't watch the movie, but get the book. And it's got a connection to dogs as well as driving. So, get onto that one.
Yeah. So, mate, just quickly, that book, I think I told you this story. I was working with, we were with, I think that was Cadillac. It was Cadillac or Audi. I can't remember which exact one. Hang on. It was Cadillac. Because we're at Coda at the Formula One track there in Texas, in Austin. And Kevin York, his name is, so this guy and I we're having a chat, a bit of a D&M in this bus on the way back to the hotel. And about the woes of life, and it was getting pretty deep. And it's funny because I don't know, I'm either having a great happy laughy time with someone, or I'm either the complete opposite, and they're telling me their life story. And this guy, one of the guys in the bus goes, "Oh, tell Gav about your book." And they all go, "Yeah, he's got a movie coming out about him." And I went, "Oh yeah, sure he does." And he goes, "Yeah, well, a really good friend of mine has written basically this story, and I've basically about me." And this is what they were telling me on the bus. This is, I'll tell you what I was told. And they go, Patrick Dempsey was Kevin, who was with me, Kevin's mate's best mate. So they're good buddies, right? So Kevin, who I was talking to on the bus, doesn't know Patrick Dempsey, but his best friend did, and his best friend either wrote that book or was writing the script or the screenplay. And he goes, so he starts telling me all these things and about the stories and what happened to his wife and his, when she got cancer and all these things, and his kids and his dog. And I remember we got up, by the time we'd gone from Coda from the track back to the hotel, he basically rattled all this stuff off to me, and I've gone, "Mate, wow, I'm so sorry, dude. I want to give you a hug. He goes, no, I'm good now, man. My life's good now. But I went through the ringer, absolute ringer. And I went, oh, wow. And he goes, so I'll send you a copy of the book. And I said, mate, I'd love that. I said, if it's about you. And he goes, yeah, I'll send it to you. And he said, you should enjoy it. He said, but there is a movie coming out and Patrick Dempsey's producing it. And I didn't really believe him until I saw, and the guys were saying it's called Art of Racing in the Rain. And then I saw when we were on the bus on the Jag job in Brisbane, and one of the guys on the bus, remember, they mentioned it, and that's what it was. So and that's that book. And I still haven't got it. He still never sent it to me. In fact, I sent him a message on Facebook after the conversation I had with you and said, where's my book, you bugger?
Go and get one for yourself. It's good.
I should, mate. Yeah, I really should, actually. That I'm sure I should make that the next book I read. Definitely.
I recommend it. We're getting near the end. Almost there, mate. There's two little questions. One is just what sort of particular goals might you have going forward with your driving career? Have you got anything in mind? It's probably more geared, that question, to some of the young guys with their racing career, but there's still things that you might have.
Yeah.
I mean, you touched on a little project with the two wheels earlier on, but is there anything else you just want to keep progressing in the industry? Or
yeah, mate. I feel like I was riding. I've ridden a wave as far as the driver training side of things goes. I've been so lucky, going from Holden, from the Performance Driving Centre, and working, with those guys, and then other, private companies, and doing track days, and then going to the States and working with Porsche, Audi, Cadillac, Volkswagen in the States as well, and then doing the Navy SEAL stuff, all of that stuff. I kind of look at that, and I say this to customers when I go to coach someone. I say, look, if just a little bit about me. This is some of the businesses that I've worked for and some of the people that I've learnt off. And I don't say it to impress people. I say it because I feel that everything that I've gleaned from those businesses and the people that I've worked around, and I'm as much as my wife calls me Gavin Chat because I like a chat, as you know. I'm happy to sit, and when I find, when I'm around people like that, I love to listen and I love to see how they teach and how they describe things and how they how they can teach somebody, a different way of teaching them that I might do, you know what I mean? And then it kind of goes into that pot, if you like, of all those talents, and they all, at the end of the day, hopefully my customer or my guest that I work with, I've got something in my toolbox that I can go, oh, look, there's something happening here, and I think this is what it is. Let's try this to see if we can fix that. And I may have learnt that through the Navy SEALs, or I might have learned it off, John, one of the, the chief instructor at Porsche, or Dean Salmon at Evolve. There's so many different ways of explaining, things that some people may not get, and then you say it a different way and they'll pick it up, as you know. But for me, I love coaching. I definitely, I think once the lockdown happens, there's all this talk of lots and lots of movies coming to Australia. I'm 54 years old. I've had a wonderful time in the film industry. I'm not, for a second going to think I'm going to get snapped back into that machine again straight after once they unlock everything. But I love coaching, and I love, I think, I definitely want to keep going with that. I think that's something that I'm passionate about. I'd like to do some events where I raise money for charities. For children's oncology is definitely something I want to raise money for. I have a few events in mind. I think I spoke to you about one of those. Keeping my cards a little bit close to my chest with that one just for now. But if and when it does go off, hopefully you'll be involved in that as well, and we can get the good message out there. And I want a few reasons. One, to raise money and do the right thing and put money and help these kids out. Two is get the the road safety message out there. There's so many people dying on our roads needlessly, and we're all young ones. We've all taken those risks. Most of us have been very lucky, and we're still here. I think educating people, getting that knowledge out there, even if it's just something simple as a following distance, giving them that little bit extra time to slow that car down before it gets to that problem, might just help enough people. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, there's things like that, mate, that I think that's, for me, that's where I'm looking forward to. I'm not going to be, going out trying to get into V8 supercars, or I think my Formula One, aspirations probably got down the tubes. But you know what I mean? I'm really passionate about that. I'm passionate about seeing someone grow, and that's why I think I love Evolve so much, and feeding off your passion as well, mate, if I can say that. And that's all the people you have, whether it's by design or not, whether all the guests that you've actually put me with, I'm extremely thankful. I've had some awesome people, and the people that have come there and have never driven on a circuit before, that go away. And some of the things these people say to me before they leave is, it's absolutely fantastic. And it just gives me, it's the fire in the belly that makes me want to get back there and do it again, So, so that's kind of where I'm at as far as driving goes.
That's great. It's exciting times ahead, and it also reiterates which has been a common theme with everyone I've spoken to so far, that reason we do what we do is that we're passionate about it, and we do love seeing those people we're helping out on the day achieve something and really genuinely thank us for what they've achieved and experienced. And that's something that you don't get in a lot of other fields of work.
Absolutely. And you've got people that come there that are very, very proficient in a race car. They can damn well drive and drive really well. And it's those kind of people that you may just give the odd little thing to that might change something that will help them on a circuit. But then you've also got the people that have come there that have never driven on a circuit in their lifetime. I think maybe two in the last group that I had never driven on a circuit ever. And by the end of the day had gone from just cruising around that circuit to really, wringing the neck on their beautiful brand new, BMW, M series, and just and not wrecking their tires and not wrecking their brakes, but having an amazing day and feeling like, driving away better drivers than when they arrived, and I think even the upshot of that is, even though they've been on a circuit, all of a sudden now it's almost like a whole other world's opened up, because now they're using their eyes more, and hopefully, potentially, it might save their life down the road as well, as a byproduct of what we're doing on a circuit. So,
Fantastic. And finally, do you have a motivational statement that you would like to share?
Oh gosh, over the years, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything right now.
Put you on the spot there, that's for sure.
It's funny because I often say to my kids, from when they were little, from babies really, 3 years old, I'd say, there's a saying, it's, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they say, the answer to that is, anything I want, Dad. Or they can say, I want to be a fireman, or I want to be a truck driver, or I want to be a race car driver, or an astronaut, whatever the hell they want to be. I go, so what do you want to be when you grow up? Anything I want, Dad. How do you become anything you want? I work hard. I work hard at school. I work hard learning. I do my study. I work out how I can get to that, and I work hard at it. And what do we never do? We never give up. And at the end of the session, so they say, I never give up. And I think that's, you know, I've been, like I said, I've said it a few times through this whole interview with you, is I've been really lucky, and you have no idea how thankful I am to the people that I've met through the years who have helped me, you included. I feel like I just never want to give up. You know, it's just keep, you know, eyes up, eyes forward, and keep moving.
Yep.
So yeah, I know it's not really a revelation, but that's kind of,
that's it, isn't it? The simple philosophy is the most powerful sometimes, and it's basically just you never lose if you keep trying. It's simple.
Yeah, you know, and you know, there's a guy, you know, the actor The Rock. I mean, he often says never give up. I think it's all over his shirts, and I hadn't seen that until not The Rock. Sorry, John Cena. I got the wrong guy. John Cena. They're two huge blokes, but John Cena. And when I worked with John Cena on the Marine, I mean, I probably said 3 words to the guy in the crafties tent. But I wish I'd known at that point in time what an impact he would probably have on my kids, because my youngest son loves him. But he has never give up on the shirts. And it's funny because I was saying that to my kids as they were growing here in Australia. Then we moved to America, and I kept saying it to them. What do you want to be when you grow up? Anything I want, Dad? And they'd say it with a almost like, oh God, here he goes again. But what it is a seed. If you can put that seed in there, and hopefully that one day when I'm gone, that'll be the fallback. You know, that'll be the thing that they go back to and go, oh God, I hear this voice in my head over and over, never give up. All right. So what do I need to do? I just need to put one foot forward and then put the other foot forward and then keep doing that over and over. And I'm just going to keep going forward. And I'm sure you're the same, mate. I mean, we've all lost people over the years. I've got good friends, and I've had a couple of friends in the last few years that have taken their lives, and it hurts because you go, man, if I, you know, it must be awful to be in that place where they feel there's no end to that pain, or there's, you know, but I just wish, you know, someone could give them that encouragement or just the knowledge that it's going to be okay, and just don't give up, you know. Anyway, bit of a heavy note at the end there.
It's all right. It's all good. And finally, like all good Instagram and influencers do, you need to sign off with your social handles and all that sort of stuff. So I know on your some of your social media stuff is quite fun and entertaining, and you always certainly put out a bit of a photo or two of our events when you're there with some smiling faces. But you mentioned those little movies that yourself and your sons put together. There's some funny little clips in there with you getting shot all the time, and you seem to always be the guy for that. So whack it out there. What's your social handle so that people can get out there?
It's Gavin Action. So it's hashtag Gavin Action, and Instagram is it's Gavin Action. But Facebook, yeah, I'm on Facebook. I think I don't know if I've got it set to public. I used to have it set to public, but I'm not sure if the Facebook one is anymore. But Instagram's definitely. I have a Facebook sportsman's page as well, and it's Gavin Action. So
perfect. I'll let people know all about that so they can get out there and follow you. And at the same time, they might even see Scout on there having a more of a growth spurt. So.
Yeah, I should have had him up here a bit more actually. But yeah, it's funny because the first time I did that, someone mentioned the dog. And they said, "Oh my God, he's really cute." So I thought I'll put him in the second one, and then the same thing. And I was getting the messages, and I thought, well, I think that's a theme now. I'm just going to keep him in there whenever I'm doing it, you know. But he starts to walk away sometimes, so I lose count.
They're great things to have around, aren't they? So, mate,
they are.
That's our interview. Thanks heaps for sharing all your stories with us. And there were a few tangents in there, which is the fantastic thing about having a casual chat like this, where there's some questions, but there's no right or wrong answers. And they give us some gold in there. There's some fantastic stories, and you've got some amazing experience to share. And it's a great opportunity that we can give this a platform to get those stories out and about.
Yeah, thanks, mate, and thanks for the opportunity too, brother. It's this is great. It's like you say, what an awesome thing to be doing for your customers.
Like there's a level of, one of the reasons I like to quantify defensive as what you said, situational awareness, and a little bit of understanding of the car, like as in how hard you can push a brake pedal and things. But advanced, where you're actually getting a little bit more car control and that sort of stuff involved, that is a totally separate thing. But 15 years ago, an advanced driving course was what people would define a defensive course. So the name kind of got stuck to that. But then when they did studies to see what the outcomes or benefits of an advanced driving course was, they found that people were getting too many skills taught to them and too much aggression and so forth. And so they didn't like advanced driving courses. And they now lump defensive driving courses under the same banner. But they're very different things. So when authorities look at it, they go, oh no, defensive, we don't want to do defensive driving courses for everyone because they engender bad attitudes and aggressive attitudes and too much skill.
Yeah.
They're not that at all. Defensive driving is the awareness and the attitude and all that sort of stuff to dealing with our roads safely. Advanced is getting prepared to go on a racetrack and get a car moving around and all that sort of stuff, that if you're needing any advanced skills on the road, you've done a whole bunch of defensive stuff wrong. You're well beyond all of that. So yeah, I can't agree with you any more than that. And that's something that is disappointing, that the governments and stuff still have a perception of advanced when they think of defensive driving.
Yeah, and it's funny, mate, there's a lot of companies out there that believe the same thing. Like I know companies in Queensland that, and I've spoken to company directors over, not a lot, but a few, and two in particular that I know has said, we will never go back and do, because the data for their company was coming back that whenever they went and did these, what they call an advanced day, where they were on a circuit and they were doing, and it's fun, like they're doing oversteer and understeer and the car's sideways here and they're big acceleration down the straight and heavy braking and turning, and here's your entry, apex, exit, and all that sort of stuff. They were getting so excited, they were leaving there and they would forget, like, so for example, understeer and oversteer, they might get 10 goes each of each thing. And if they didn't actually get it and it's say an oversteer and fix it, they go, yeah, well, I kind of understand it, but then they'd go away. Even if they did get it, they'd go away. And then 6 months down the road, they've forgotten it all because they don't practice it every day. It's something that if you don't practice it or don't, you're not feeling that often, that it kind of goes out of your mind. And then they panic and then they'll just hit the brakes and then squeeze the wheel and come to a stop or hit whatever it is in front of them. So what they were saying, these two particular people said, look, we actually do all our stuff on road. And they took their business at that particular time, they took their business to RACQ, because RACQ they don't do it anymore, but they were doing an on-road. It was the TO 205A at the time, which is that ROOVH. It was an accredited course, but they did all on road, all of it. And they said, we're finding our numbers of incidents have plummeted because now they've got things that they could practice, like following distance, counting off that 3 seconds, counting cars in the mirror, I know now I can practice what I've got to do to merge, shoulder check, all that stuff. So it was really interesting to hear that,
But it's sort of not surprising because they had the wrong defensive course. It wasn't a defensive course, it was an advanced course. So they weren't going to get the results out of that program. They didn't have the right program for their needs. I know that's right. An example of that was when Jamie Whincup was working for us back in the day, and we did an event, defensive driving up in, I think it might have been in Sydney. And at the end of the day, we had a slalom and people were driving through the slalom and they were like, oh, can we get Jamie to do a lap, take us for a thing through the slalom? And you sort of think nothing of it. Yeah, okay, be our supercar driver and we'll get him to do a couple of runs through the slalom with you. And obviously he goes through and has a bit of fun and, and I remember contacting the company about a couple of weeks later as a follow-up, both in terms of rebooking some new ones on and finding out how that one went. And I asked about their feedback. And she said, oh, they had a great time. All of them were talking about how Jamie took them through the slalom at the end of the day. And it's amazing how it doesn't matter how good the day was and how much practice and good skills and awareness they built through the day. The thing that they stuck in their head and the thing that they told everyone else about was that Jamie Whincup took them through the slalom and the car was doing this and that.
Yeah.
They didn't remember a thing about what they did when they pushed the brakes or what they did when they turned the wheel or what they learned in the classroom or any of that sort of stuff, because of that one aspect of the event that then overrode everything else that you had established. And so it really hit home for me to go, right, the day has to be focused. It has to be, you have to make sure it meets the needs throughout the whole program, not just bits of the program. It's got to be the whole, from start to finish, has to be along the same theme. So it's a pretty important lesson